Welcome to CineCynics.
I'm Craig.
I'm Mark.
And on today's show, a review of 42, the only baseball movie not starring Robert Redford or Kevin Costner. So finally, the trailer for Neil Blomkamp's highly anticipated Elysium has been released, and it looks pretty damn awesome. I'm kind of glad he's taking so long to do his next movie, because this is probably one of the best-looking science fiction movies this year, besides Oblivion and
Pacific Rim.
And Pacific Rim, I'm sorry. Also, it has a social undertone, which he did in his last movie, and I like how he's mixing the sci-fi with these different social aspects in the world today. I really appreciate that about filmmaking, and especially about his filmmaking, and the visual effects look stunning. Of course, I would not anticipate anything less than that, because it's Neil Blomkamp, and District 9 looked beautiful. Some of the visual effects were pretty amazing in that movie. And also, Matt Damon is looking pretty awesome in this exosuit that they drill into the back of his head, and he has super strength, and it has like telekinesis and stuff, and all these different powers, and he's gonna take down Elysium with all these damn rich bigwigs in the space station. I'm just really excited about this movie.
I'm really looking forward to this movie as well, and I think that Neil Blomkamp has certainly proved himself to be among the most visionary directors of this new generation. I think Elysium looks pretty fascinating, to be honest, and it seems to me like it's going to be some cross between Metropolis and District 9 in the way that it, once again talks about social themes like his previous movie. I really hope that it does well, because I hope that he gets to do a sequel to District 9, because I think that movie really deserves revisiting. The plans to remake Catherine Bigelow's Point Break seem to be going right along, and director Erickson Core has been selected to helm this project. Now, my immediate question is, why? This is something that really doesn't need to be remade. Despite what flaws the original might have had, it was still a really great movie. And as I've said before, movies of this type are just insulting to viewers and their original creators, because it shows nothing but a lack of creativity, but a desire to still capitalize on the intellectual property of others.
Oh, and now it's going to be with the extreme sports like motocross and skateboarding. I bet it's going to star some young upstart Hollywood heartthrob, and he's going to be a skateboarder or some bullshit, and he's going to be an FBI agent at the same time.
They're doing away with the surfing element, which to me seems like it completely undercuts the whole tone and purpose of the original movie.
Yeah, I made a recommendation to see Point Break, and that was one of my favorite to-do recommendations. I love that movie, and I think this remake is not wanted whatsoever by anyone. Michael Mann's next project is going to be a cyber hacking thriller starring Chris Hemsworth about a Balkan hacker, and the American and Chinese anti-cyber terrorists organizations are after him, and it sounds pretty exciting. I really like hacking movies. I really love Hackers from the 1990s. That was probably one of my favorite hacking movies growing up, and I look forward to it. Michael Mann has never really disappointed me. I think he has a very good eye for direction, despite what you hear about behind the scenes and how eccentric he is. But I'm really looking forward to it.
Like anything Michael Mann does, I'll definitely be keeping a close eye on this one. And the plot does certainly sound interesting, where it has the American and Chinese government teaming up to take down this hacker that apparently has been harassing them both. But I can't help but wonder if it'd be more realistic to have the Americans trying to take down the Chinese, who in reality are the ones who are hacking and stealing from us. But either way, I definitely look forward to see how this one turns out. Following some long circulating rumors about the possibility of Mel Gibson starring in Expendables 3, Sylvester Stallone has actually taken to Twitter asking fans what they would think of him directing Expendables 3. Now, I think this would actually be pretty perfect. I think Mel Gibson would be a perfect choice for the Expendables series, and it's nice to see these Hollywood guys actually giving him a second chance as opposed to other people in the movie industry. But at the same time, I kind of want to see Mel Gibson get on with his own epic projects like the Vikings movie or the Maccabees movie. And I even seen it somewhere on the internet suggested that he would also be a perfect director for the potential Legend of Conan movie in development. And I think that's that's pretty accurate as well.
I, for one, love Mel Gibson. I think he is an amazing filmmaker and actor. He has won many awards, and I think he would do a pretty great job with Expendables 3. Although I think he should be working on bigger projects other than the Expendables movies. And I really want to see him acting more so than I want to see him directing, because I haven't really seen him in a lot of stuff except for, Get the Gringo. And I know that he's going to be,
fantastic.
Which was awesome, and he's going to be in Robert Rodriguez's Machete Kills, which is the sequel to Machete. I just want to see him in more of these leading roles and directing these big epic projects that he'd win an Academy Award for, and that's just how I feel about it.
His presence on screen is sorely missed.
42, directed by Brian Helgeland, stars Harrison Ford and Chadwick Boseman, about the events leading up to and including Jackie Robinson's joining of the 1947 Brooklyn Dodgers, effectively breaking the color barrier in Major League Baseball. So this is a movie we didn't hear too much about. I mean, we saw the trailer for it, and it looked to be an average movie, but surprisingly it was actually a pretty good baseball movie with some great performances by Harrison Ford and Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah, I didn't even know this movie was in production until a few months ago. And again, apart from the trailer, you wouldn't even know that this movie existed. There's really been no advertisement on television about it. And but the presence of Harrison Ford in it alone was enough to make me want to see it. And I was expecting it to be good, but it actually turned out to be very good. And I think one of the main reasons, apart from a lot of sports movies, which gets too bogged down into the mechanics and the nitty-gritty of the play, this was a movie about the characters themselves and the history. And though it was reverent about baseball, and even going so far as to explain a minute rule like what a balk means, it's still it was still centrally based on the story of Robinson, and the baseball part of it was almost kind of in the background as opposed to the struggles that he was dealing with.
And boy, did he go through some struggles. I mean, you felt a pit in your stomach every time that a racist slur would be slung, or you would see a bunch of white people gathering around the car when they drove off really fast so that they wouldn't start rioting on his car, and just all the crap he had to deal with the fans, especially the fans, and the breakdown that he went through.
Unlike a lot of other similar movies, I appreciated that this one wasn't overly preachy, but yet remained very forceful where it needed to be. That it showed the evils of its time without sugarcoating it, but yet the focus still remained solely on Robinson, of whom this story was really about. Because, as Robinson says in the movie, he just wants to play. And you really got that sense that despite whatever else was happening around him, it didn't let him detract from his dreams and his focus in playing as best as he could, despite the misguidance of the views of everyone around him, that he remained wholly devoted to the game and to his family as well. And also, I think that Chadwick Boseman in this role was perfect. In fact, when you consider that back in the 90s, Spike Lee had his own vision to create a Jackie Robinson movie starring Denzel Washington. And I'm glad that this movie beat him to the punch, because I think Denzel would almost have been too big a face for that role, whereas with Chadwick Boseman, he was able to slip right into the character without people being too distracted as to who the actor playing Jackie Robinson is.
and I think he had such a great supporting cast, it didn't really matter who was in the central role.
Yeah.
And I think that actually got a better performance out of him because he was surrounded by such great actors.
Great talents, especially Harrison Ford. And like every other performance he's ever given, I expected this one to be good, but it exceeded my expectations even for him. And in fact, he was so good in this movie that even though you couldn't quite forget that it was Harrison Ford, you really began to believe that you were viewing the figure on screen as opposed to Ford, which is sometimes very difficult when you have such a big, larger-than-life actor, on screen.
Yeah, and he had a really great performance in this movie. Hopefully it won't get lost in the shuffle when it comes around in Oscar season. And I really loved his portrayal of this character, and the reasons why he drafted Jackie Robinson, and he gives this stupid reason in the beginning of the movie, and then he gives Jackie his honest response.
Yeah.
And you really felt for his character, and also it kind of put a smile on your face that he fell in love with the game again just for doing this one good thing for someone.
Yeah, very complex reasons, and he starts off seeming like, more or less all his reasons for wanting to bring Robinson into this game are purely like, pragmatic or
monetary.
Monetary, economical. But as the movie progresses, you really begin to see the deep moral and even religious compunctions that drive him. And then at the end, how this is all leading down, how those very compunctions and his love for baseball driving him to do this right thing to finally to get this done.
And he wasn't the only one who had a great performance. Christopher Maloney played the original coach, Leo DeRoche, and he was pretty awesome. He was kind of a philandering manager, and he kind of was
one who was very good at his job despite that. Yeah.
And he made no bones about how of a hard ass he was.
Yeah.
And he, even though he was in such a short part of the movie, he definitely delivered an awesome performance. And I actually remembered his character more so than some of the other characters that were also secondary in the cast.
And you had other great actors in little supporting roles that cropped up throughout the movie that helped to punctuate it very well. Like you had John C. McGinley in the role of the famous Brooklyn Dodgers announcer Red Barber, and he was perfect in that role, even like getting the accent down right.
Yeah, his cadence was perfect.
Yeah, and also Alan Tudyk in as Ben Chapman, the manager of the Phillies, is really this ugly, wholly consumed racist man, and having him heckle Jackie, which was funny too, because you don't really expect to see this of Alan Tudyk, especially because you see him in Firefly. He plays a character who's involved with an African American woman, so this is the furthest thing from that. But apart from that Alan Tudyk is so good that despite all of his likable roles, he can still make you detest him in this one.
Yeah, and it kind of made me laugh in an uncomfortable way, because I always picture him as a comedian in a comedic role, and I felt awkward. And obviously this was all because of his great performance as being this very, very big racist.
Yeah, you just felt uncomfortable and just like all around bad. Like you felt like almost guilty after having listened to what he was spewing from his mouth.
And also a lot of the secondary characters that were on his team really punctuated the fact on how, even though this is something that's new to people, it will become more comfortable for people, and people should throw away their old views and begin to realize that a new world is coming. And I really loved Lucas Black's performance as Pee Wee Reese, who definitely punctuated that moment when he was almost hugging him around his shoulder and just making everybody see, like, this is the kind of person I am.
Even though some have called this a relatively safe, biographical picture, I don't necessarily see anything wrong with that. And in fact, the style of it as a whole kind of reminded me of movies that they don't necessarily make too much anymore, like A League of Their Own and other movies like that, where it dealt with serious social issues and history and breaking boundaries and things like that, but they still managed to encapsulate the humanity of all these characters without it getting bogged down in all of the themes and messages.
And despite it being a very safe movie and it following these very simple story elements and character elements, they did something very different with the ending, where it wasn't building up to this climax, which I found a little bit weird, but I can see why some people would like it. And it just had this very weird climax, but then it kind of slowed it down and made you really just soak in the moment, instead of it just being the home run, it being the climax of the home run in this race for the pennant. It was more so of him breaking that barrier and Harrison Ford's character of smiling and being happy and him being in love with the game. And it was more towards that moment than really the moment that you would think.
Yeah, but in so doing, they deviated from that normal sports movie formula, where the ending being about the glory of the win, and again brought it back to Robinson himself and his personal triumph.
As much more if I think about it, I did really like that part, and they were really, as he was rounding the bases and he was just looking at the crowd and soaking in the moment, and you were also soaking in that moment along with him, and I really appreciated that.
As with other great sports movies, which pay due reverence to the games they portray, 42 still remains all about the characters, and that's where it really shines. It's great performances. It's great performances that really make you feel the triumph of its characters. I definitely recommend that you see this.
I definitely have to recommend this movie. It had some great performances that drove the story, and I think a lot of people should get to know the story of Jackie Robinson and the struggles that he went through at the beginning of his career. If you enjoyed CineCynics, like, comment, and subscribe.
Follow us also on Twitter, Facebook, and Blogspot.
And check back every Saturday and throughout the week for more movie news, recommendations, and reviews.
The question this week is, what are your favorite baseball movies, starring either Robert Redford or Kevin Costner? Seriously, they're in every one.